And we know that video resonates with more people than just print. There's a lot of limitations to print, but shockingly, audio has kind of made a big comeback because now people find themselves more in trying to utilize found time. So, audio has certainly made a comeback, and now it seems like video is best consumed in these little, bite-sized snacks. There's a lot of, people under the age of 24 that, they'll say overtly, oh, I don't like movies or I don't like binge watching, but a lot of them are physically incapable of doing it because they're constantly fiddling. They can't sit still. They're looking for a vape. They got 1,000 notifications. And I mean, this happens to people of all generations, but I don't think it's ever physically incapacitated people.
Welcome to Strategic Edge, our subtitle, Applying Transformative Leadership. We are glad you could join us today. We are a podcast for leaders and by leaders. We're going to interview the best and the brightest of leaders to be able to provide you information. We're here to inform, to instruct, and to inspire you on your leadership journey. My name is Ted Davis. My company is Grace Strategic Services, Inc. We're proud to be the sponsor of this podcast. And we encourage you to take the information that we're going to share, make it your own, absorb it, then reflect on it. What does it mean to you? And finally commit to an action plan. So with that, let's get started with today's episode. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to bring on the podcast today Harrison Roberts, fascinating gentleman, a wonderful entrepreneurial background, originally from California, now lives in Austin, Texas. He's an entrepreneur, as I said, has 3 or 4 different strategic business elements that we're going to hear about today. And Harrison, why don't I turn over to you and let you finish the introduction. What is it you want people to know about you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Ted. I really appreciate it. And I think on the surface, you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see that I have a background in media production. I've ran physical production companies as well as a post-production company. My latest company still deals with video, mostly in the realm of generative AI. So it looks like I'm kind of, a video guy or a media guy, but the through line through all of those companies is the same. And I think the key is our mantra is always, we want to make your life easier as a service provider. And a lot of times when you're working in creative spaces, a lot of people get in there because of, quite frankly, it's ego that drives them. And, certainly I'm well aware, I have my own, there's my stories that I want to tell. I also want to sow my creative oats. However, I feel like the best way to go about achieving that is when you endear yourself to others, eventually you will be in a position to put yourself front and center. So I tell all my employees and I try to tell in pitch meetings when I'm talking with clients, it's like, hey, we're in the trenches with you. We are here to make your life easier. And anybody I talk to that's having their own, client-facing service-based business, I always try to come back to that main mantra. And I try to do that in other facets of life too.
And how long have you been in business?
So the first company, I tried to do the 9-to-5 thing coming out of college. That would have been 2010 to about 2011. And it turns out I'm not a very good employee. I don't take orders very well. And from then on, that was the first company, the first production company. I was really fortunate to have a super sharp business partner that kind of encouraged me to get involved with the space. Prior to then, I'd been very pragmatic. I bought the conditioning that a lot of millennials were sold, which is, you have to go to college for 4 years. And then, you got to hit the ground running in the workforce, or maybe go back and get your master's. And all of that is just to get a Suburban and a house. And so doing something creative never really, I don't think I had the confidence to do it. And luckily my business partner sort of corralled me and got me into this new space. And he was right. So, we started off doing reality TV and then quickly jumped to commercials. That was, 8 to 9 years. And then the past 5 years, we've just sort of been trying to, pivot into other things because the content creation space, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but everybody with a cell phone makes content now, and they make
Absolutely.
really, really good content. You know, back when I was in my early 20s, I was the young scrappy person that could undercut everybody else because I was willing to wear 10 different hats on the line item budget. And that's how I was able to undercut everybody. These days, there's the next generation coming up that are even scrappier. They don't even want to be paid. They'll do stuff for exposure, and it's very hard to compete with that model.
Yeah. Good. So, and how big is your company now?
So on the production side, we'll have upwards of 300 freelancers per year. But that's independent contractors because you ramp up for a shoot. Any shoot will have anywhere from 60 to 80 people, usually commercials. And then on the post side, you've got graphics designers, VFX artists, colorists, and that can be another 10 people or so. Full time right now between the three organizations, I'm managing about 6 people, and they're still mostly in California, actually, a few here in Texas, but they know they're fully remote, and that's sort of the perks of the job. And working with us is, I trust them as long as the work gets done. We're happy.
So that sounds like trust is a key part of being able to work in a distributor or dispersed staff.
It's everything, and it's I don't know if you asked that intentionally because it opens up so many different things. I feel there's just especially I see it in the entertainment industry, there just seems to be a dearth of trust right now, as well as even it's not a lack of competency because there's talent everywhere. It seems to be that there's oftentimes a lack of pride. Whereas I think that oftentimes, especially in your creative works, if you turn something in, how much of your personal, if your name is on it, usually that would be enough of an incentive to force you to really put your all into it. And I've learned as being entrepreneurial, running these small organizations, that it is kind of silly to expect your employees to care as much about your vision and your business as you will. Obviously, the incentives have to align. But I think that even over the past decade, you could have those honest conversations. And if people weren't happy, they would let you know. Whereas, I don't know if you've heard some of these terms like quiet quitting.
I haven't heard that one yet.
It's so quiet quitting is when you're completely disconnected, but the paychecks keep coming. And so you just sort of you just chill until somebody catches you.
I've seen it. I just didn't have that label.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Maybe you see it when when you go to restaurants and all that, and this happened a lot in Los Angeles, where people would just feel like, well, this isn't my real job. I've got this side hustle over here, or I'm trying to be a writer or a director, and I don't really care how you feel right now in this moment. And so I'm trying to. My philosophy has changed where I care less about what's on the resume. Obviously, the portfolio is important, but it's more so just, again, what is your attitude as a service provider? And that goes back to the whole, trying to make people's lives easier. If you like that kind of thing, then we're all going to work well together.
It sounds interesting. As you talk about trust, the thought comes to mind of, I don't know if you've ever read Stephen Covey, his junior, Stephen R. Covey's book, Speed of Trust. And
I heard you talk about it in a previous episode, and I added it to my Audible. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, read that because, when you talk about trust, his two parts that he says, and you've talked about one of them already, is competence. Do I have trust in your competence that you know how to do the job and that you can get it done? But then the key, well, that's one component. I like credibility when it comes to the idea of, are you credible because you have the competencies? But then the other key part of trust is, according to him, and I agree with it, is character. And I think that's what you kind of alluded to is, it's a character issue. Do you take pride in your work?
Yeah.
And put your name on it and just absolutely take great pride in it. And it's so remarkable when you find, I think, people like that. And as I've told my listening audience, I spent 22 years active duty in the Army. And one of the most wonderful things about that was to watch young American soldiers excel and do well. I mean, they were just remarkable young men and women, and the character counts. So it sounds like that's where part of your struggle was, is that
Yeah,
clashing.
yeah, because at the end of the day, and I don't know if it's a, there could be a spiritual tie-in here. There's certainly comparisons to the military here, where if you're able to self-satisfy, if just completing the mission is enough for you to feel content, then it's going to be okay. If you're constantly looking for this external validation, if you're constantly looking for some type of, if you're only doing it because of the medal at the end of the road, that's a different incentive structure. I know me personally and the people that have really helped my company get to the next level. We're the type of people that, we may be turning in a long form piece of content that's 25 minutes long. And then when we go to watch it back, what we call the QC, the quality control process, there may be a frame missing 14 minutes into it, just one frame. And it could be a render error, it could be a user error. But, if you're working on back in the day, if we were working on a G5 or an old MacBook Air or something, it might take you another 3 hours to re-export that thing. But if you have pride, you can't live with yourself. I could not go to sleep with a dropped frame, or if I saw a bad rotoscope or something. And I have the team, and it's taken a while to assemble, but I've got my rock stars now that they have that same mentality. And so I think a lot of it, it often does start at the top with the leadership, for sure. Set that example, make sure you practice what you preach. But it's also about, that interviewing process, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So, and if it starts at the top, so it starts with you as a leader, and I couldn't agree more. I think everything hangs on the quality of the leadership. So, what's been your kind of guiding star, your leadership model? Kind of what's shaped your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, it's always evolving, and I think right now where I'm at, my North Star is just the truth, just being radically honest in all facets of life. And I think how that translates to leadership is no longer trying to strategize, no longer trying to game, and in a darker sense, not trying to manipulate. I've been thinking a lot lately about a lot of the common influences that young entrepreneurial men, we all have kind of these shared touch points. And two of the major ones are Art of War and 48 Laws of Power. I'm not sure if you're familiar. We probably Art of War. Have you read 48 Laws of Power?
No, that I've not read yet.
So. Yeah. So ironically, I actually have the book. It's back there. It's the orange one. So I've read. And so this is kind of like, because we were potentially, the first, or maybe Gen X was the first, but we're one of the first two generations where, I hate to crap on the boomers, but y'all pretty selfish, I think, more so than prior generations. Kind of like,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, kind of the first parents to sort of, have their own things, have their own country club community, be working late, become speculative realtor investors, and do all these little side hustle things. And I think all that busyness, and also I think we're also one of the first couple of generations to have this disconnect with the other people in our family, where we didn't have that, we didn't have fireside chats with grandpa and grandma. We didn't have that connection to our older generations, which historically, that's where these values tend to be passed down. So where are we getting it from? Rogan's a good starting point, and that can lead to, several other things. And that tends to, lead to books. And I think oftentimes as young men, we get really excited when we start to kind of, discover these resources, because they really start speaking to us. And sometimes it can go off the rails with red pill, Sigma culture. But, for a lot of us, those are two frequent books that we read: The Art of War and 48 Laws of Power. And if you adhere to those principles, it'll put you in a better place, as it gives you some type of direction. But it's no surprise that, if you only stay along those lines of teachings, a decade later, you're going to find yourself pretty much, you might be successful, but you're going to be a lone wolf. And the reason might be obvious, but it's because those are written in the context of war. It's going to make you behave as if the people around you are your adversaries. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was thinking as you say that, and then talking about the evolution, I guess would be the way to say it. How somebody
Yeah.
matures, sees life differently by the stages, by the examples, and so forth. I don't know if you ever read anything by Stephen Covey, the father, who was
Hmm.
famous for 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. That was the first book. And then he wrote another one about principles-based leadership, I think it was. But I heard him in a speech one time talking about the fact that how important principles are. And you
Hmm.
need to understand the principles that are transcendent,
Yes.
generation to generation, geography to geography, whatever. So there are certain principles, and you need to understand what those are, because it's disastrous to keep crashing against the principles. Like for example, being a life of integrity, being honest. Well, if you're constantly dishonest, you're crashing against that principle eventually. I mean, you may be successful for a while, but if you keep doing that, it's going to catch up with you because you've crashed against a principle such as being a man or a woman of integrity. So I think you kind of allude to that as you mature. And I think you mentioned my generation, the baby boomers. No, no, I think we are the weirdest generation there was. I mean, first of all, when we were teenagers or thereabouts, we were at Woodstock. I
Hmm.
wasn't at Woodstock itself, but I was in the neighborhood. When it went on, I was in the neighborhood of Woodstock and got hung up by the traffic and met some people who had been at the event and so forth. But here's this weird time frame that we went through in the 60s. And then, of course, we had to take charge of, because it was our era, take charge of businesses and so forth. And we were totally different
Yeah.
from this free love type stuff.
Well,
So
and
I think
you were in the army in the 60s, right? So
that,
did you miss Vietnam or?
yeah, no, I was, yeah, I graduated from West Point in '74. So the
Oh, okay.
Vietnam War was winding down. So I didn't fight in Vietnam. My first war was the Gulf War. And, but it was a wonderful career. But I was a child of, if you will, a young professional
Yeah.
based on you talk about evolution. I think the military is a great thing, particularly of course, I know the Army. As you look at how we changed from the Vietnam era going forward,
Hmm.
and some of the great minds that it took to realize how you had to change internally. You had to change, like you said, starts at the top. And so
Yeah.
we had to have leaders who truly understood. They had to set the tone and the culture and think about what is the next, what does the country need from its army to be able to go and fight wars and serve the nation.
Yeah.
And so we fundamentally changed. I think throughout the '70s into the '80s, the transformation of the army was absolutely marvelous because of a few great leaders who were thinkers as well as warriors, and they lived the ethics. So, yeah, we can talk about that for forever.
Yeah, I got so many more questions, but I don't want to, derail you.
I appreciate that. So you've been in information age technology, right, with digital stuff, and you've been telling stories using digital stuff,
Yeah.
and so forth. So what have you learned about the importance of digital storytelling that applies to contemporary leaders?
Yeah, I think it's goes back to another journalist, another author, Marshall McLuhan, who said that the medium is the message.
Mm.
And
Well,
and yeah, and I've always felt that way. I think everything comes downstream from culture, and how is culture disseminated? It's through these various mediums. And
yes,
and I think now people have different takes on how this medium is going to evolve, but we're right now no one has the answer. And we know that video resonates with more people
yeah,
than just
yes,
than just print. There's a lot of limitations to print. But shockingly, audio has kind of made a big comeback because now people find themselves more in trying to utilize found time. Oh, audio has certainly made a comeback, and now it seems like video is best consumed in these little, bite-sized snacks. There's a lot of, people under the age of 24 that, they'll say overtly, "Oh, I don't like movies," or "I don't like binge watching," but a lot of them are physically incapable of doing it because they're constantly fiddling. They can't sit still. They're looking for a vape. They got 1,000 notifications. And I mean, this happens to people of all generations, but I don't think it's ever physically incapacitated people until, we see some, like I said, some younger people now. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely right that the message that is received.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. There's a message that's sent, but then there's the message that's received. As the listener decodes what they experience. And then that leads me to a point I wanted to make. I was wondering if you've ever read the book Experience Economy by, I think it's Joe Pine and Jim Galloway, I think are the name of the authors. But Experience Economy, great book.
Yeah.
And their premise is that, and I think it's true, that right now we live in an age where it's the experience that people are seeking and paying attention to and so forth. And so what you do in your digital productions is part of, what is it I experience because of what I see, what I hear. So you're immediately using at least two, and I guess just those two, sight and sound senses, for people to take in the message and what they see and hear and the emotion of the wrapping of the message, how you wrapped it in the medium, I think stirs an emotion, and that emotion makes the content of the message more acceptable.
And Ted, I wish you worked at Netflix because I'll try to make this, I'll try to do this in under 3 minutes, but let me tell you what I think is going to happen, because I mean, emotional transfer, that's it. Sale is an emotional transfer. Selling is an emotional transfer. And that's a Seth Godin quote. I did not make that up. And good content is an emotional transfer, which gets you to buy the subscription or to buy the movie ticket. It's all transfer of emotion. So what's happening now is the economics are completely being upended. In a microcosm, what I saw happen maybe 5 years ago, something that I was new to, was before, if you needed voiceover for a commercial or a cartoon character, you would hire professional voiceover artists. They oftentimes went to a studio. So you're paying for studio time. You're paying for client crew to be there. You're also paying the actor, and they're getting their residuals. This was anywhere from a $2,000 to $9,000 output each time. Fast forward to 2016 beyond, mics start getting really good. You can have them on your desktop. You can have them on your lapel now. They sound better than anything 10 years ago. Remove the engineers, remove all the travel. Anybody can, every single actor out there should now be doing voiceover in their home to make money on the side. I mean, hell, anybody can do it. That took the price from that, $5,000 to $9,000 range. I can get voiceovers now from anywhere in the world for $250. Yeah. So that shifted that industry. Now think about how, if I was shooting a car commercial and the opening shot was the cars coming around the mountain and the drones traveling the other direction, Michael Bay style, that shot by itself could have cost $125,000 to do, 4 minutes of that. I can do that with I'll be able to do that with Sora or whatever OpenAI drops or whatever Google drops or Adobe. They're all doing it now. And I'll be able to generate that. I'll be able to generate the baseline product for, less than $10. And then I'll just do a little bit of VFX to change whatever that car is on screen. I'll just, put in, take the CAD files from the manufacturer, and boom, there's your opening shot. It's going to be done for less than $1,000. So what's going to happen now is it'll happen in 2 steps. The first step will be a lot of the stuff that you watch on Netflix, all of the B-roll, all the establishing shots, all the background shots, those will be AI generated. So what you're going to get is a lot of people that are working around the world, mostly in India, and they're now going to have a very, very large role in creating these shots that you see on, these major productions. Do you think there's an emotional transfer when they're working on your stuff? Do you think that there's, let's say the quality's not good or anything, but we're willfully going to get further and further away from content that makes you feel anything? And it's
Mhm.
already kind of started to happen. I can't remember. God, I remember going in and watching like The King's Speech in college. Like,
Oh, wow, what a movie.
yeah, watching that
Awesome
with my
movie.
mom. Very, very hard to get that in theaters today and to do the numbers that that movie did.
That was a phenomenal movie. I loved it. Yeah,
Yeah.
such a compelling story. Yeah.
And then even on another level, really, really kind of off the beaten path movies like Fight Club. Like, I don't know how you get that made in a world where everything is generative. And why wouldn't it be generative? Well, the economics are too damn good to pass up.
Right.
So, and that's why it's like, everything is now going to be, it's either going to be Love Island or sports or the money will go to the comic book movies 100%.
Mm.
But what's going to happen with the labor market is if there's less than 300 people that get to work on these blockbuster movies, then people are going to stop going through the training. Like there's going to be such a small amount of people qualified to actually shoot these Marvel movies. And, because if you're interested in content creation, this medium or doing short form on TikTok or YouTube is probably going to be more fulfilling. Otherwise, you go back to, all right, maybe I can, get my degree, go through USC film school and, bust my ass on set for 30 years before I get to work on She-Hulk 7. It's just not gonna, you can see where I'm going with this. And now on the flip side though, positive, all of this content creation is now becoming available to industries that were never able to harness the power of it before. So you think about so one of my newest companies called Edifits, and what we're doing is all of this crazy stuff that we've been doing for broadcast commercials, for Super Bowl commercials, we now can make it economically viable for insurance companies. Like that's our jumping off point. It's basically the insurance sales process, which was traditionally, get everyone in the lunchroom. Babs comes in with her rolly backpack and some lukewarm Subway sandwiches and gives you a stack of PDFs and you go through and you just, here's your critical illness policy. Here's your voluntary life insurance policy. They're lucky if they get 10% to sign up on that. Now we get legitimate actors and they're now giving the presentations, and using generative AI, the presentation is specific to you. And so it resonates a little bit more and you can consume it in a fashion that is familiar to you, which is found time on your phone. And that's, I see the sales process as we know it will be replaced by this avatar interaction.
So is that something that business owners, business leaders need to be paying attention to so that they know how to message both to the clientele as well as to their own employees?
100%. If you are in just real estate, for instance, if you're the CEO of a firm and you've got maybe 200 brokers underneath you, you should have your own avatar at this point. And you should be using that. Anybody that goes to an open house, anybody that interacts, they should feel like you are involved in the process. I mean, well, realistically, it'd be nice for you to just record videos and say, hey, thank you, I appreciate you. Here's my number if you wanna talk to me. But you can record that video once, and using generative AI, you can put in the names or addresses of whatever you want to do. And this is, right now we are a service provider that does this, but there will be a platform within 2 years where you can deploy this yourself. But I think, yeah, we should all have our own digital avatars at this point. Now, I wouldn't do it to communicate with your employees because that's just lazy and that's just off-putting. But I think it could be a nice personal touch to let, various people that interact. If you're a startup clothing brand and someone buys a $50 snapback, getting a nice little message from the founder, even if it is somewhat generative, it's still a nice touch, and it's not going to cost you much.
Good. Well, I hope people follow up with you. And it's been an absolutely wonderful conversation, but unfortunately, time moves forward. So we need to move towards wrapping up. And like I do with all my guests, I like to ask, what are three practical things people ought to be doing as a result of listening to us today? So, what are your three tips? What are the practical things people should be doing?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, and it's been covered on a couple episodes already, but it's too important to not say, take control of your health. Yeah, whether it's your mental or physical. And it kind of dovetails with my second point, which is confront your fears. Start with one. And I think that, oftentimes a lot of those might be health related. You're putting off going to go see a doctor, or, you're putting off, something that you want to try. But hell, you could be scared of snakes. I don't know. But as soon as you confront that and you get over it, you now prove to yourself you have the capacity to conquer those things. It's then going to eliminate five other fears that you had. And all of this is to just make you more present. And because you're eliminating this baggage that you don't realize is weighing you down with all these micro interactions you do every single day. When you're present, you are then open for good things to enter your life. You can engage in a more real basis. The way I think about it is like, let's say you took over this dormant retail shop and everyone is used to this place being closed. Yeah, you're open for business. You may get some foot traffic in, but just putting up a sign that says we are open, you're going to get maybe more foot traffic. Actually, I guarantee you're going to get more traffic. So by eliminating some of these fears, I think you're just going to make yourself more present and you're going to be open for business. The last thing is just be nice to yourself. If you do right by yourself, if you take care of your health, if you're taking care of business, give yourself a little treat. For me, it's I try to golf in the middle of the week, try to get one round of golf in, and that I give myself permission to go on do not disturb for 4 hours. And then if that persists, every Sunday, I'll either get a cheeseburger or a chocolate chip cookie. That's how I reward myself. So one of them is taking care of business, and the other one is the reward for taking care of my health. And then, give yourself maybe a trip every few months, whatever it is. This is certainly advice for entrepreneurs. I know most people don't have the schedule flexibility, but that's just we beat ourselves a lot. We beat up ourselves a lot because of what we see on social media, the projections that we think we're supposed to maintain. It seems like everybody, how does everybody have a six-figure side hustle? How is that possible? They don't. You trust your gut. And
Yes.
just be nice to yourself.
Wow, those are three incredible tips. I love that. So it was take care of your health, conquer your fear, know and conquer your fears, and be
Yep.
nice to yourself. I love the particularly as you talked about the second one and how conquering your fears opens you up to possibilities. When you study positivity,
Mm.
particularly Barbara Fredrickson's book called Positivity, she and others who on that same subject of positive psychology talk about the fact that positivity opens up the mind to new solutions,
Yeah.
whereas negativity closes. Negativity says, nope, it's not possible. And that's what obviously fears do, because fears are negativity. But if you get rid of them, and you approach life with some positivity, hope and optimism and so forth, resilience, wow, you're open to new possibilities.
Yeah.
So,
They call it abundance mentality. They call it manifestation. They call it Oprah had the secret. Like figure out what language works for you. But yeah. It's all about being present. That's all,
absolutely.
mind.
Well, in the spirit of being open, I hope that I can be open to having you back as a guest
Of course.
sometime in the near future. I mean, this has been incredible. I've loved the conversation, and I think you've got so much to offer, and we can explore not only personal leadership, but explore the implications of your trade and how that's going to affect leaders. So, thank you so much for being with me today. And I know what we're going to do is make sure that we list your website, your email address, anything else you
Cool.
want us to make sure people know, so they can get in touch with you if they need your services.
Yeah. Harrison.vip is Instagram. I'm a millennial, so that's the best social for me. And that's also going to be my website, edifits.com, if you're interested into some of the AI stuff we talked about and potentially having your own avatar as well. And my email's on there, harrison@edifits.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, my friend. You have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now we've got 3 ideas of what to share from today's podcast. So again, what I'd like for you to be able to do is take those ideas, make them your own, reflect on them. What do they mean to you? And then thirdly, commit to an action plan. Commit to actions that you can take to apply what we've talked about today. If you want help, if you want some ideas, if you want some accountability, please contact me. Contact me by sending me a text, 913-306-1499. Put podcast follow-up in the text message, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you on our next broadcast.